Welcome back, everyone. If you're new to the show, thanks for tuning in. If you're a longtime listener, well, you know the drill.
Yeah, welcome back.
Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us a like.
Yeah.
It really does help other people find us. So tonight, we're going deep into some seriously creepy territory.
Oh, yeah, we are.
We're talking about the Avenging Tree.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I know, right? This idea that trees are more than just, plants. They're beings with their own energy and sometimes a seriously vengeful spirit.
It's one of those themes you find in scary stories and folklore, like all around the world, right? There's something about it that just gets under our skin.
For sure. It's like this primal fear of nature turning on us, right? Like we've taken too much and now the woods are going to get their revenge.
Yeah, there's definitely that element of like ecological anxiety in these stories, but there's also this personal aspect to it. Like it's not just about the planet, it's about our individual actions and the consequences we might face.
Exactly. Like in that story of the Korean businessman in Seoul, he's on a business trip, right? And he's being just totally disrespectful to his mother on the phone. And almost immediately, weird stuff starts happening to him.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one. Like he's at a bar with his colleagues and suddenly there's blood in his drink, like fresh blood, and no one else even notices it.
Yeah, it's like he's being singled out,
Yeah.
like marked by some unseen force.
Right. And then it just gets weirder from there. He sees this singer on stage, but she has no face, just this blank void where her features should be.
Creepy.
And then later he's walking back to his hotel and he finds himself in the middle of this massive construction site that wasn't there before.
Like a whole construction site just pops up out of nowhere.
Yeah, and then he finds out that one of his colleagues, a guy he barely knew, actually committed suicide.
And the timing of it all lines up perfectly with all this other weird stuff that's been happening to him. It's like he's become this conduit for his dead colleague's despair, almost like he's being punished for something.
It's heavy stuff, It makes you think about the ripple effects of our actions. Like, even something as simple as a disrespectful phone call could have these unintended consequences.
Okay, so this next story is completely different. But it also deals with human nature and the choices we make when we're pushed to our limits. It's about these school kids who are stranded on a deserted island after a plane crash. They're facing starvation, no hope of rescue. It's a total nightmare scenario.
Yeah, and in the midst of all this chaos, you've got these two boys who figure out a way to manipulate the situation to their advantage.
They represent these opposite ends of the social spectrum, right?
Yeah.
One's the richest kid in the group and the other's the poorest. And they use that to their advantage. They play on everyone's prejudices and fears to convince them to participate in this so-called survival ritual.
With the magic conch shell.
Yeah, this magic conch shell. And anyone who blows into it ends up paralyzed and basically becomes prey for these two masterminds.
It's a really dark commentary on how quickly civilization can break down when survival is on the line, and how easily people can be manipulated when they're desperate.
Totally. Makes
Yeah.
you wonder, how far would you go in that kind of situation? Would you hold on to your morals or would you do whatever it takes to survive?
Tough question. Okay, this next story shifts gears a bit. It's about the power of words and the consequences of being cruel. It's about this guy who has facial paralysis, and his friend makes a really insensitive joke about his appearance.
Then what? Like karma comes back to bite him.
In a way, yeah. The friend who made the joke starts developing the same facial paralysis. It's almost like the condition itself is contagious.
Whoa, that's messed up. It's like the universe is saying, hey, think before you speak, jerk.
Exactly. It plays on that fear we all have that our words can have real power, that they can somehow manifest in reality.
Yeah, it's like a cautionary tale about empathy and the weight of our words.
Right. Like, think about the impact your words can have, even the ones you think are just harmless jokes.
All right, this next story plays with our perception of reality, blurring the lines between what's real and what we believe to be real. It's about this guy, Mr. Mysalt. He's a former Hollywood set designer, and he becomes like this local legend in his neighborhood for his super realistic Halloween decorations.
Oh, yeah. This one's good. So his work is so lifelike, so convincing that it sets up this really chilling twist. One Halloween night, this little boy trips and falls near one of Mr. Mysalt's most gruesome creations, this demon statue.
Oh, no.
And the boy dies, and at first everyone thinks it was just a tragic accident.
Actually hit his head or something.
Exactly. But years later, the boy's father digs up his grave, and it's empty.
What?
Yeah. The implication is that Mr. Mysalt's obsession with realism led him to do something truly horrific.
Look, he kidnapped the boy and replaced him with one of his creations.
It's messed up, right? It makes you question how far we can trust our own senses, especially in a world where technology is constantly blurring the lines between real and fake.
Definitely. This one really gets under your skin. Okay, now let's talk about a story that cranks up the paranoia and leaves you with this lingering sense of dread. It starts with this mysterious emergency alert. No explanation, just this chilling command, do not look at the sky.
And of course, this unexplained warning triggers this irresistible curiosity in our narrator, right? He starts observing the sky, noticing these strange, shifting clouds that seem to have this eerie life of their own.
Like they're watching him.
Yeah, it's unsettling. And he tells his friend Patrick about it, but Patrick just dismisses it as a hoax.
And that's what gets him into trouble, right?
Yeah.
Ignoring the warning.
That's exactly what happens. Later that night, the narrator hears Patrick screaming outside his house, ranting about something watching him from the sky. Then he finds Patrick dead, having taken his own life.
Oh, wow. That's intense. So what was it in the sky? What drove Patrick to suicide? We never find out, do we?
Nope. And that's what makes it so effective. It leaves us with this profound sense of unease, this feeling that there are forces at play that we just can't comprehend, forces that can manipulate our minds and drive us to do things we would never normally do.
It's a reminder that curiosity can be a dangerous thing. Okay, this next one takes us back to the Avenging Tree theme, but it's got this whole other layer of family drama and abuse mixed in. It's about these two young brothers, Robbie and the narrator, and they're living with this abusive stepfather, Greg.
And their grandmother, this mysterious woman who's clearly terrified of something, keeps warning them to stay away from this massive tree in their backyard. She's like, don't play around the tree, don't touch the tree, don't swing from the tree.
So obviously there's something seriously wrong with this tree.
Right. It's not just a tree. It's like this embodiment of some ancient power or something to be feared. And Greg, being the arrogant jerk that he is, totally ignores these warnings and decides to chop the tree down.
Talk about tempting fate.
And of course, it backfires big time. Greg gets seriously injured while trying to cut down the tree. And in this twisted act of revenge, he forces the boys to swing from the tree, basically defying the grandmother's warnings and invoking some ancient curse.
So what happens? Does the tree get its revenge?
That night, Greg disappears. And it seems like the grandmother's warnings are coming true.
And the boys.
The narrator ends up witnessing Robbie's gruesome death, seemingly caused by the tree itself.
Whoa, that is dark. It's a reminder that nature can be both beautiful and terrifying, and that sometimes it's best to just leave things alone.
Exactly. There are some boundaries we cross at our own peril.
Okay, before we move on to some listener-submitted tales, I want to remind you, if you're enjoying these explorations into terror and urban myths,
hit that subscribe button.
And give us a like. It really helps us keep these stories coming. Now let's dive into some even stranger encounters with the unexplained.
Oh yeah, let's do it. Yeah, it's like even in the places we think we know so well, there are these hidden pockets of strangeness waiting to be uncovered.
Right, it's the stuff of nightmares. Like, what if the things we take for granted, our homes, our pets, aren't what we think they are?
Exactly. Like in this story about the necrophagus nighttime guest, it starts out innocently enough. This woman is asleep in her bed, and she feels her cat jump up on the bed, like cats do.
There's nothing unusual there.
But then she gets this whiff of this horrible stench, like rotting flesh, and she realizes that the thing on her bed isn't her cat at all.
Oh, God. So what is it?
It's this creature way bigger than her cat with thick, oily fur, and it's making this low purring sound that's like vibrating through the whole bed.
That's terrifying.
I know, right? And the weirdest part is she's so paralyzed by fear that she instinctively reaches out and starts petting the creature like it's her own cat.
What happens?
The creature calms down. It's like she somehow knew how to appease it, But then it vanishes without a trace, leaving only that awful smell behind.
And her real cat.
Perfectly fine, as if nothing happened.
So creepy.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder what else might be out there mimicking the things we know and love to get close to us.
Okay, so this next story is kind of a cautionary tale about good intentions gone wrong. It's about this guy who's trying to be a good neighbor. He sees this elderly woman living in this rundown house, and he thinks, I should bring her a plant just to cheer her up.
Sounds nice enough.
Right. But when he goes to deliver the plant, another neighbor confronts him and accuses him of harassing the old woman.
That's weird.
Yeah, he's totally confused. But then he finds out that the woman he saw is actually dead. She died years ago in this murder-suicide with her husband.
Oh, wow. So he's been seeing a ghost?
Apparently. And it gets even creepier. He sees her again standing in the window of the house, and this time he notices this horrifying detail he missed before a gaping wound on her face from the shotgun blast that killed her.
That's intense. It's like he accidentally stumbled into this whole hidden tragedy.
Right. It makes you think about all the unseen layers of history that exist beneath the surface of our everyday lives.
For sure. Okay, this next one takes us to rural Mexico. It's a story about poverty, desperation, and ancient rituals.
Mm-hmm.
It centers on this young boy his ailing grandmother, and his grandfather, who's willing to do anything to save her.
They're living in extreme poverty, and the grandmother's really sick. It's like a death sentence. So one night, the grandfather takes the boy on this secret journey to this dark, forbidding cave.
Okay, this is already sounding creepy.
I know, right? And what happens in the cave is even more disturbing. The grandfather makes the boy hold this live chicken, and then he throws it into the darkness.
What? Why?
We don't know for sure, but we hear these terrifying sounds coming from the depths of the cave chains, dragging a horse's hooves clattering on stone. Then they run out of the cave as fast as they can.
So what was that all about?
Here's the thing. After that night, the grandmother makes a miraculous recovery. And the grandfather comes back from a trip with this brand new truck, loaded with supplies and toys.
It's like their poverty just vanished overnight.
Yeah, exactly. But the source of their newfound wealth is never explained. It's heavily implied that the grandfather made some kind of dark pact in that cave.
Oh man, that's messed up. So what happens to the boy?
Years pass. He grows up, goes to university, seems to escape the shadow of that night, but then he gets word that his grandfather is dying, and he goes back home, and he starts hearing those same chilling sounds from his childhood, the chains, the hooves.
Oh God, no.
This time he actually sees it, a hooded figure riding a black horse, its legs bound with rusty chains. The figure attacks his grandfather, dragging him out of bed.
Wait, so the grandfather's being punished for the deal he made?
It seems that way. But then the boy's grandmother wakes him up and tells him it was all just a dream. His grandfather, she says, died peacefully in his sleep.
But what about the attack? The hooded figure?
That's the thing. The boy has these unexplained wounds on his arm, and there are bruises on his grandfather's foot that look like they were made by chains. It's like he witnessed something real, something supernatural.
So was it a dream? Or was it something more?
We don't know for sure. But it definitely leaves you with this lingering sense of unease. This feeling that maybe some bargains are better left unmade.
Definitely. Okay, let's shift gears for a second and talk about something a little more modern, but no less creepy.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of people receiving phone calls from loved ones who have passed away?
Yeah, it's one of those things that you hear about every now and then, and it always sends chills down your spine.
Right. Like, is it just a coincidence, or is there something more going on?
Well, this story might make you think twice. This woman's working on this home renovation project, and she decides to play a prank on her mother. She calls her from the old landline in the house, just to mess with her.
Seems harmless enough.
Yeah, but when her mother answers, she's totally freaked out because the caller ID shows her deceased husband's name.
No way. So it's like he's calling from beyond the grave.
That's what it seems like. The woman checks her father's old phone records, but the number doesn't match. It's like he's calling from some other realm or something.
That's seriously creepy. It makes you wonder about all those stories of people receiving calls from loved ones who have passed on. Could it be real?
It's definitely unsettling. It taps into that deep-seated desire we have to connect with those we've lost, even if it means crossing over into the unknown.
Okay, this next story is about a simple object that takes on a life of its own. It starts with this young girl who finds this mysterious ring in her bathroom. A silver ring with a blue stone. It doesn't belong to anyone in her family.
Intriguing. So what does she do with it?
She keeps it for months. She's drawn to its beauty and the mystery surrounding it. But then one day it vanishes, goes down the drain.
Oh no, so it's lost forever.
You'd think so, right? But years later, she still remembers that ring. It becomes this symbol of something unexplained, this little crack in her everyday reality.
I get that. Sometimes these little unexplained things can really stick with you, like they're trying to tell us something.
Exactly. Okay, for our final story tonight, let's talk about something that combines science and horror in a really fascinating way. Have you ever heard of the rubber hand illusion?
Oh yeah, that's a classic. It's where they use a fake hand and some clever tricks to make you feel like the fake hand is your own.
Right. So in this story, this couple decides to try the experiment at home. And it works perfectly.
Yeah.
But later that night, things take a terrifying turn.
What happens?
Woman wakes up and the rubber hand is on her bed, like it's crawled out of the experiment and into her life.
That's creepy. So what does she do?
She tries to throw it away, but it keeps coming back. Each time more persistent, more menacing, like it wants to be a part of her.
Like the illusion has taken on a life of its own.
Exactly. They finally drive out to the middle of nowhere and set the rubber hand on fire. But as it burns, she feels the heat on her own arm.
Whoa. That's intense. It's like the line between real and fake has totally blurred.
It's a reminder that our minds are powerful, but also incredibly vulnerable. And that sometimes the things we create can take on a life of their own.
Well, folks, I think that's a good place to wrap things up for tonight. We've covered a lot of ground, from vengeful trees to shape-shifting creatures to phone calls from beyond the grave.
It's been a wild ride. If you enjoyed tonight's descent into the darkness, be sure to subscribe to the show and give us a like. And as always, keep those lights on. You never know what might be lurking in the shadows.
Sweet dreams.